All right, everyone, hold on just a second. All right, welcome everyone. It's Dr. Dan Ritchie from FAI and Andrea Leonard from CETI. We've got 48 people here live. I'd love to know where you're all from. So if you could, please type in either the chat or the Q&A, whichever you find easiest. Tell us where you're from. Andrea and I would also love to know if this is the first FAI or Cancer Exercise Training Institute presentation you've ever been on. I'm guessing it's not the first ever for one of the two of us, but you never know. So if you're new, that's great. Just tell us how you heard about it, how you know about us.
Ooh, they're coming in quick. We've got
they're coming in.
Quebec, and we got Arkansas, we got Hershey, PA, Vienna, I'm assuming Virginia. I'm in DC right now. Macon, Georgia, Manila, Indiana, Austin, Texas, Minneapolis, Central Cali, Cincinnati, Naples, Florida.
Jessica, cancer webinar an hour ago. All right, she can't get enough of you.
Colorado. That's funny. Yeah, I know, like webinars out the wazoo. North Dakota, Brisbane. Awesome.
Hey.
Oh, welcome everybody. Welcome.
Munaza from Pakistan. I've seen Munaza a couple times here lately. North Vancouver, longtime listener to FAI webinars. All right, excellent.
Okay.
Well, let's get rolling. We've got a lot to cover here in an hour. Andrea and I are going to try to basically give you an overview of the aging and cancer opportunity. We see a lot of crossover. One of the slight disadvantages of the longer you live, the more likely you are to get cancer. So there is some overlap there. Though I would say it's better to live long and get cancer than to not live long at all. So there is that. So I like to start out with the longevity question. You guys have all found the chat and Q&A, so I know you can do this. So I want you to think about how long you will live. This isn't something we tend to spend a lot of time thinking about. Oh, I'm going to live to 87 but I want you to think about it for a second, and probably some number popped in your mind. So I want you to go ahead and type that in the chat. Just type whatever that number is, type it in the chat. I won't, I'll try not to.
And while they're typing, Dan, I will say, when you talk about age and cancer, my mother has had breast cancer 3 times, 1981, 1996, and she has stage 4 metastatic breast cancer now, but she's doing well. She's responding to treatment, and she just turned 82. And I told her, I said, hopefully you get another 15 plus years, Mom. And with technology and with treatment and all of the advances, it is absolutely possible. Ooh, we got 105, Rosemary. Her mom is 104. Amazing.
Yeah. Now I didn't say what I often say. I saved that. So we have in here 90, 85, 90s, 82, 120. So then what I usually say is add 10 or even 15 to whatever your number is. Now all of a sudden those numbers get pretty big, and for some people they even get a little scary. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to live to 107. So we have to think about actually living longer than we even anticipate, because many of us are going to do that because we're seeing longevity extended. And in fact, people today living into their 80s and 90s are living way beyond what their life expectancy was when they were born, right? In 1935, when we came out with the idea of Social Security in the United States, life expectancy was 58 years old. Well, of course, we know people born in 1935 are still with us today, and so they've far surpassed their life expectancy, and many of them will do it by about 30 to 40 years, right? So we're seeing a longevity and a lifespan basically explosion. In fact, by 2030, we're expected to start seeing lifespans in the 90s. We've never seen anything like that. We're certainly in the 80s in some countries, but 90-year-old life expectancy in South Korea, people are just going to live longer and longer and longer. In fact, it's going to become almost commonplace for people to live into their 90s in the developed world, and people living to 100 is not going to be something we celebrate anymore, right? I mean, I remember when the Today Show used to have the Smuckers ad with the so-and-so turned 100. I mean, now you'd have so many people, it would be like a half-hour segment.
Right.
The United Kingdom, I don't know if you know this, Andrew, it's hilarious. The Queen sends out a personal telegram to everyone on their 100th birthday. They anticipate they're going to have to stop that when 10,000 people start turning 100, right? I mean, it's going to be just overwhelming for the Queen to be sending out personal telegrams 1,000 a day.
How old is the Queen now? How old is she?
The Queen is in her upper 90s as well. I think she's
Wow.
95.
I didn't even realize. So looking at this slide, Dan, and hopefully this isn't putting you on the spot, and it may be sheer speculation, what do you attribute the longevity in South Korea, for example, being in the 90s already, to the US being in the 80s?
Like, why is the US behind?
Just whether it's opinion or fact, what do you attribute it to? Diet?
Well, the U.S., for whatever reason, still trails a lot of these countries in infant mortality. So when we look at life expectancy, we have to factor in infant mortality, childhood death, accidental death, all these other reasons people don't make it into their 80s and 90s, right? And so one of the reasons the U.S., and I hear people continue to say, oh, our life expectancy is not as good as the rest of the world. And some of that is lifestyle, right? We lead the world in obesity. So there's no doubt that has an impact. But there's also some of it is just that our country is so much bigger than South Korea. And because of infant mortality and other reasons that people die early in life is bringing our life expectancy down as well. So if we're looking at why is it in general that people in Asian countries live longer, certainly we can see lifestyle, diet, physical activity. Obesity is a significant one. In fact, obesity...
Even ways we manage stress or don't manage stress, because I look at, and especially with COVID, I've had a lot of time to look at this, and the 4 pillars really of health and of a strong immune system are 8 hours of quality sleep, stress management, proper diet, getting enough protein as part of that, and then exercise. And, you know, I not to keep talking about my mom, but, you know, when she, you know, battling breast cancer for the 3rd time, and she's by no means a poor specimen, but I said, Mom, I've been here a week. I've not seen you exercise. You're not getting enough sleep. You're stressed out all of the time. And, you know, she's eating her first meal at 3 p.m. So, you know, I think all of those things, those choices and the way we handle things, and every country has a different way, you know, a different lifestyle. So that makes perfect sense to me.
Oh, that's awesome. Robin says, my aunt received a card from the Queen this year. She turned 100. That is awesome. That is so cool. I would love to see that card. It would be a shame if they have to stop that, but I'm sure they'll figure out a way to automate it.
Yeah.
So we're really just at the beginning of an explosion in the United States of the 65 and older demographic like we've never seen, right? We've never had a time in our country where we could say, well, 1 out of 4 people are over 65. Well, we're now there, and it's going to climb. In fact, we anticipate we may get close to 30% of our country being over the age of 65. It's just not something we've ever experienced. In fact, not something we ever really anticipated. And we see this trend in almost all developing nations. So if you're in the United Kingdom or Canada, I know we have people from other countries, these trends are very similar. In fact, in the UK and Canada, it's actually steeper. We're going to see more people over 55 and 65 percentage-wise in those countries because your birth rate has dropped off even more so than the United States. As well, we tend to have a little bit more immigration. And so our country is actually staying a little bit younger. We've had population growth, but we've never seen 80 million people running around over the age of 65, right? I mean, it's just not something we've experienced. In fact, the 65 and older generation, that demographic was always sort of the small senior generation. You look back to 1990 on this chart here, we had about 30 million people over 65. Well, soon it's going to become a dominant force in the United States. And we're going to see that all across Europe, in many Asian countries. In fact, it's going to be really interesting when we see a country as large as China have 1/4 of its population over the age of 65. And we already see sociologists looking at, well, what's it going to look like when a couple gets married and they have 4 parents and 8 grandparents all still living, and they're expected to take care of them, right? Like that's sort of been the cultural norm. And all of a sudden we realize this is a little out of balance. I don't know that I can take care of this many people. And so it's going to be an interesting phenomenon. Many countries are not prepared for this. They don't have the systems in place. They don't have the healthcare structures, the long-term care structures. And of course, that burden then is going to fall to many family members, right? All of a sudden, we're going to be taking care of our aging parents. When we bring it down a little younger, the 50-plus market in the United States is already half of the country. It's well over 100 million people, and it's anticipated to grow. So we've already tipped the scale. Over half our country is over 50, and we're going to see that continue to grow and grow in the next 10 to 20 years. Here's a slide for you, Andrea.
I know. I get, well, you know, a lot of, I mean, everything that Dan is talking about, obviously, you know, that's the big umbrella. And then cancer is, you know, one component under that umbrella. But when we're looking at 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3 people worldwide that are going to be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their life. And of course, as we age, the risk increases. And, you know, we'll talk about some different statistics, but just the United States alone, we've got a new cancer being diagnosed every 30 seconds. And, you know, I don't know how that compares to kidnapping or to, you know, other events that are going on in the United States, riots, protests.
It's way higher. It's way higher.
Like, you know, God help us. I don't know what's worse, but you know, the bottom line is, and is this, it's such a missed opportunity on so many levels because, you know, as a fitness professional, I mean, I've been a trainer since 1992, since, you know, I was, I think 28 years old or whatever. And I worked with healthy young people and wanted to get 6-packs and we're missing the boat as an industry. And I know that that's where we're going with this presentation is the need equals the opportunity.
Yeah, I wanted to, I didn't get a chance, but I wanted to overlay this because we have a slide that says someone is turning 65 every 7 seconds. Right? Oh. And then you overlay that with, wait a minute, somebody's being diagnosed with cancer every 30. Yeah. It's almost like 1 out of 4 people that are turning 65 are being diagnosed with cancer. If you lay them on top of each other, well, it's sort of daunting.
Yeah, it depends on the type of cancer. And then also when you go back to the slide with the longevity statistics, and you talked about the United States and our whatever 60% obesity rate or whatever it is today. So many cancers are linked to obesity. And then once somebody's diagnosed with cancer, just for example, people going through chemo are already at a higher risk because of chemo of increased risk of heart disease, diabetes, and then future cancers. And then you add obesity to the equation and it continues to go up and up.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, these numbers are from the US. I noticed we got people from Amsterdam and Ireland and Pakistan and UK and all over. So just in the United States, the baby boom generation represents about 1/4 of our country. And we see the baby boom phenomenon in most developed nations, right? So most of Europe, we certainly see it in some Asian countries. And it's a pretty global phenomenon. World War II ended, people went home, they settled down, and they had 2, 3, 4 kids in the United States. And we just saw this explosion, became the largest generation very quickly in the United States that we'd ever seen. And a very, very powerful, very powerful generation. And so when we look at the aging numbers in most developed countries, the numbers are they're huge. It's a huge segment of the population, and they're not going anywhere. It's not like 25 years ago when we thought about senior fitness and we thought, oh, people might work out with us for 4 or 5 years. No, these people are going to be clients for 10, 20, 30 years in some cases. In a lot of cases, they have a greater desire to live and age better than even their parents did. Because really, the people right now in their 90s, they're kind of the pioneers. They're really the first generation that started living that long. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at that going, well, gee, if I'm going to live into my 90s like my parents did, I probably want to do it a little bit better. Maybe this exercise, fitness, holistic health, lifestyle is going to make a difference, right? As opposed to some of the other choices. There still today is a huge lack of competition in medical fitness, cancer exercise, rehab exercise, fitness for function. There just aren't very many fitness places. I mean, think of just a 5-mile radius of where you live, how many fitness studios are oriented to health, lifestyle, helping someone recover from cancer, helping someone recover from a stroke, helping someone just get in shape for the first time ever at 70 years old? There's just a big gap in the market. So,
Well,
Andrea, I'll let you talk to
yeah,
kind of the cancer stats. I mean, it's kind of staggering, but to me, it's a huge opportunity.
without a doubt. And along those lines, you're mentioning the studios and the gyms and health clubs. Let's just assume that life as we know it has changed forever with COVID, and more people doing virtual training. Virtual trainers are now a dime a dozen. I mean, you can get yoga, Pilates, yoga lattes, piloxing, and you name it, and it's free or very inexpensive, and everyone and their mother is doing it. But good luck finding cancer exercise or breaking cancer down, because there's 200 different types of cancer, into breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, and then even breast cancer into different types of breast cancer, or working with senior exercise and function and balance and neuropathy. People aren't doing it. I mean, they are missing the boat. And I've always said that, fitness professionals want fun fitness. You go to the IDEA convention or, any other convention, and you go to David Weck's BOSU class, and God love David Weck and everything he's done. But you've got 500 people lining up to get a BOSU ball, or you go to Billy Blanks, who's resurrected and doing Tai Bo. But then you go to cancer or functional aging. And yes, I mean, obviously we have interested people, but the numbers are much lower because it's not fun fitness, or because people, I don't really know, but
I'll add one more to that. It's not sexy either, right? Which is sadly a huge part of the fitness industry, right?
And it's interesting you use the word sexy, Dan, because I still remember this gal. Had to be 20 years ago. I was teaching a workshop in Palm Beach, Florida. And she was a Pilates instructor, beautiful girl in her 40s who had had a bilateral mastectomy. And she said, sexy people get cancer too. Period.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
I had cancer. I may not be like, the poster girl for sexy, but, I'm not that bad. Lots of people get cancer and everyone gets old. So why then do we not see this opportunity? And, whether you're looking at it as a way to really give back to society, to leave your mark, in the history of fitness, or whether you're looking at a way to make money. All of those are there. So when you look at 18 million cancer cases around the world, I was actually combing the internet because I'm updating our materials, and there are no new statistics. The American Cancer Society has some newer ones, but since I'm speaking globally, I'm still sticking with the 2018 stats. For whatever reason, they're behind the 8 ball, probably because of COVID. Yeah. But nonetheless, assume that this is going up exponentially each year. These numbers are even greater now. And then 43.8 million people that are survivors. So that means in addition to the new cases every year, we probably have close to 50 million people who are living as survivors of cancer, me being one of them. And then by 2040, we're looking at the global burden to exceed or at least grow to 27.5 million new cancer cases. And by then, we'll probably have 60 million people that are cancer survivors. So much like the entire aging population, this is a population that needs our help. I mean, they're begging for it. They just don't know where to turn because there aren't qualified people who are trained to work with them.
Right. Absolutely. I know we opened our studio in 2007, and it wasn't long, within 2 or 3 years, people were coming to us that were cancer survivors saying, well, do you have someone that can work with us that's trained in cancer? And this was 10 years ago. And now, of course, it's commonplace, right? I mean, they're, like you said, cancer survivors are, I'm guessing in the United States, it's close to 1 out of 15 people walking around are a cancer survivor. I mean, it's got to be a really high statistic if there's 48 million cancer survivors. And that number has to be growing. I'm sure it's going to grow exponentially as people live longer and cancer treatments get a little better, and we have people surviving longer.
Well, and one of the things, and somebody just mentioned, I think Carolyn, she's an ACSM cancer exercise trainer, and this just made me think of the new standards that they put out in 2019. So for example, with cardio, 75 minutes high intensity or 150 minutes of low to moderate intensity. And, these are under their recommendations for cancer patients. And that's what we're aspiring to. But when you're talking about people who are so low functioning, when they are, overwhelmed with fatigue and side effects, which they go in so many different directions, you have to understand how to safely start and progress somebody, because you can have all these norms and all of these goals, if you will, but how do you get them from point A to point B? Because you are not starting somebody who's 75 years old, going through chemotherapy or hormonal therapy and, hey, we're going to do 150 minutes of cardio a week. It's not going to happen. So it's all about understanding literally the immediate goals, the short-term goals, the long-term goals, and everything in between.
Did I just pause my screen sharing there?
It just went away. We've got some grayish, blackish something.
I was like, wait a minute, what did I do? I clicked on polls, and all of a sudden it took my PowerPoint away. There we go. We back? Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Galapagos Islands.
Yeah, so I like to share the story about Joanne. One, because she's one of my favorite client stories, but two, because I think trainers and fitness pros need to hear that it's kind of cool and exciting to work with unfit, unhealthy people. And Joanne was a client that actually had Parkinson's. It could have been any medical condition, honestly. She came to us at 80 years old and she was not fit. I mean, I can fairly say she was unfit and she was unhealthy. She could barely walk a block. And she wanted desperately to go to the Galapagos Islands before she couldn't. And that's really the way she put it. She's like, this is the one trip that I was hoping I'd get to do before I died, right? I mean, it's sort of the last bucket list item. And she's already pretty much given up hope that she can do it. And I said, well, I've never been to the Galapagos Islands. Sounds, glamorous and exciting to me. What do you have to be able to do that? And she said, well, they tell me I have to be able to walk a mile. I have to be able to navigate some sandy beaches. I have to be able to climb in and out one of these. I love that she got this picture for me. You can see the boat behind her, right? They just beached this boat. You got to climb in and out of one of these rubber inflatable Zodiac boats. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't sound like the fittest person you have to be. How far do you have to walk? She said, they tell me I might have to be able to walk a mile before I can take a break and sit down. I said, okay, so we got to get you to walk in a mile. We got to get you to be able to climb in and out of something. And she was able to take the trip. She trained with us for about 7 months. Cool thing is, when she got back, she's like, well, I don't want to quit training now because I might want to do something else. Right? I might want to take another trip. Doesn't have to be as glamorous as the Galapagos Islands. Maybe it's something else. She trained with us for 7 years. We literally could not get rid of her as a client. She stayed with us till she was 87. She actually stayed with us as a client until her husband passed away, and he could no longer bring her to the facility because at that point she had stopped driving, but she was still faithful in coming. So these are great clients. They're not necessarily all in their 80s, but the ones in their 80s, you can have a marked difference in their life and really, really fun to work with. Here's another one, a little bit younger. Actually, a physician, Dr. Summer, he wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with his daughter here pictured, and he realized he was not fit enough at 58 years old to summit. He's like, I don't want to just go to Africa and miss out on the fun experience. I want to have this experience with my daughter, right? Lifetime mountaintop type experience. Nobody can take that away from him. So he was willing to pay and train hard for a year to get ready for this because he knew she was doing it next summer and he had plenty of time to get ready. And he paid for the expertise, did what we told him, and here he is, and he got to summit Mount Kilimanjaro.
Well, Dan, can I interject something? Because one of the things, and when we're talking about the aging population and they have the funds and they have the desire, and I know that there are people in our audience that are going, but wait a minute, when people are going through cancer treatment, they don't have the money, or they may not have the money. And, how do we ask them to pay? And that's a sticky question. So if you're a gym owner, or if you are a studio owner, or even an independent trainer, I mean, it's up to you. There are certain things that you can do for free, like having an extra member in your club. It's something good that you can give back to the community. You're serving your community. It's humanitarian. It doesn't cost you anything. It's an extra body. As for a personal trainer or somebody, that you need to make the money for each hour that you work, maybe you can do a sliding scale, or maybe you do a certain number of hours pro bono per month. There are always ways to give back. There are ways to do fundraising. And then, the YMCA Live Strong program is a perfect example. I mean, the YMCA is a nonprofit, so they're able to collect donations, which support the program, so that people can come in and they have a free membership, and then they get these classes. But that is not one-on-one, and you need to understand the difference between what you get in a group class with all kinds of cancer patients thrown into one class, the general benefits. It's much like comparing curves to personal training, okay? It's just a general, heart conditioning and movement and range of motion, compared to identifying specific limitations, specific acute and chronic side effects, and what you can offer in a one-to-one or small group setting. But there are ways to get around all of these things and make it a win-win for the patient, for the medical team who's doing the referrals, and for you as a fitness professional or gym owner.
Yeah, and that's true whether somebody even has cancer or not, right? I mean, just because people over the age of 60 have more spending power, have more wealth, have more time in most cases, it doesn't mean every single one of them is a walking billboard for millionaire success. We certainly have some on a fixed income, and then we have others that have more than enough money they could probably purchase our services 10 times over, and everyone in between.
And it's also priorities, Dan, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
people will buy the Gucci bag or spend $800 on Botox or going out to dinner or, whatever, cafe latte, yada, yada.
I've had people say, "Oh, your program's too expensive," and this was at a time when our lowest training program was about $150 a month, and then they drive off in a Mercedes or a BMW, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. It just makes you realize it's not that they couldn't afford it. It was that it was just a value proposition for them. I don't really want to spend $150 a month on fitness. I think it's worth $50, and maybe I didn't do a good job of educating them as to why $150 a month is cheap compared to a cancer diagnosis, compared to a triple bypass, a hip replacement, all the other things that are coming down the future for them. But just because the aging market and the cancer market is huge doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to pay, right? Not everybody wants to be fit and healthy. We're actually going to look at some of those numbers here in a second.
Or they wait till they hit rock bottom, because a lot of people don't like prevention.
Right. I think grandparents are a huge market, because grandparents want to be physically active with their grandkids in a lot of cases. Even if they don't want to do physical activity with their grandkids, they want to have energy to travel and see their grandkids. They want to be engaging. They want to be sort of part of their lives. Don, the tottering old grandfather, came to us at like 87, I think. And he said, "I just don't know if I'm going to get to see all my grandkids graduate high school." He was already projecting, "I only have a couple years left, and I don't know if I can travel to see them anymore." About 2 years later, after training with us, he writes me this long letter at 89. He's like, "You've changed my outlook on my future. I now believe I'll see all my grandchildren graduate high school, and some of them graduate college, and even see some of them get married." And so now he doesn't know that, right? He could die the next year. I mean, who knows? But all of a sudden at 89, he felt stronger, more physically robust, more engaged, more able to travel. He had to fly to see most of his grandchildren. And so that was just sort of a new outlook on life for him. He no longer felt like the tottering old man boarding an airplane that needed help with his luggage. He was like, "I can do anything and everything," right? He's doing battle ropes in our gym and up downs and all sorts of stuff, right? So it's a cool segment Couples, of course, huge opportunity, especially when one of them has a cancer diagnosis or some other health situation. It's like, well, we got to get back to par, right? We don't want to age differently. We don't want to have somebody all of a sudden drop off and now they can't travel with us or do physical activity with us, do certain functional things. I've seen some clients, they come in simply because they want to train their spouse so they can be a better pickleball or tennis player to play with them, or even golfer or whatever it is, right? It's like, could you make my spouse a little more athletic? I'm like, I don't know if we can do that, but we can make them stronger, a little quicker, help them move better. I can't necessarily make them a better athlete, but we'll do our best.
That was a prerequisite for my marriage. We got married 6 years ago. My husband didn't do snow sports, and I said, because I'm an avid skier, snowboarder, I said, before we get married, you're going to have to learn how to do snow sports. At the time I skied. So we learned how to snowboard together because we were both starting. And I know that's a different example, but it does apply. I mean, people want to do things that are going to keep them together and enjoy
for sure
all of the activities that they love.
Right. I mean, if your idea of a vacation is going skiing or snowboarding and your spouse is like, my idea is sitting on the beach sipping, then that's not going to be a great fit.
No, not at all.
So the mature market needs fitness. Obviously, cancer's on the list, and it's way bigger than just cancer. There's so many health conditions facing us as we age. Arthritis and hypertension are by far the number one and number two, and cancer, of course, is significant as well. There's so many different health conditions we face as we get older, which is why I can, with a clear conscience, say there's no one that we run across over the age of 50 that doesn't need our services. I can, with a good conscience, say we can help everyone. If you're over the age of 50, we have a program that's going to help you, whether you have any of these health conditions or not. We're going to help you reduce the likelihood of them, prevent them, prevention.
I mean, that's the thing, Dan. When we look at this, people who are going through cancer treatment, it's literally like baking a cake. So, for example, I had thyroid cancer. So as a result of having thyroid cancer, I'm at a higher risk for osteoporosis. Had I undergone chemotherapy as well, that increases my risk of osteoporosis exponentially. Then, of course, you add menopause, whether it's natural or whether it's hormone induced, you've got another layer. So osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, diabetes are all comorbidities of cancer and cancer treatment.
Oh, yeah. These all absolutely cross over. The mature market, and this is sort of the older you get, the more likely you are to wind up with a chronic health condition. 80% have at least one. Arthritis and high blood pressure are the most common. 50% have two or more. So we know that having expertise in this area is going to be helpful, because if you're working with somebody over 50, pretty good chance they're going to have a chronic condition. Pretty good chance that fitness is going to be one of the best remedies for it. And it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something, this was the mistake I think the fitness industry went down years ago, is we trained people to work with apparently healthy people. We train people to work with people without chronic conditions. I'm like, well, what if we get to a situation where 80% of your clients have one? So it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to be aware of. It's something to realize is a big opportunity. I've got some cancer stats on prevention coming up here. This I love from Canadians here, is what I call messed up healthcare math, right? They basically tell us they're not healthy, and then we get to the end, 80% think their doctor would say they're doing just fine, right? My doctor says I'm doing okay. It's like,
meanwhile, they're like,
exactly. It's like, wait a minute, just you're not exercising at all. A third of you are stressed. 62% of you are overweight or obese. 85% of you aren't eating any fruits and vegetables. This is some funny math, right? You're really not doing well, but you're not sick, is really what it is. You're not really well, but your doctor says you're doing okay. Just keep taking your blood pressure meds, Mrs.
I gotta add this. God rest his soul. My father, who died just about 6 years ago, and this is funny because when you put up the slide, my father, he was 78 years old. He had prostate cancer, bladder cancer, myelodysplastic disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and COPD. He was probably 30 pounds overweight, all in his belly. On
Sure.
our wedding day, which was September 27th, whatever, 6 years, 2014, he had a heart attack.
On your wedding day?
On our wedding day.
That's good timing, Dad.
After we learned to snowboard.
That's good timing.
Yes, and then he, you know, we were in Portland, and you know, those were the last 5 days I was going to see him. I didn't know this because he got stuck in the hospital in Portland. So he went home, and I'd be like, Dad, are you going to cardiac rehab? Andrea. Long story short, never went. And I would say, you know, what'd your doctor? Oh, my doctor says I'm good. And then he died on November 13th. So, you know, people's idea of healthy. I mean, here's my dad with 6 diseases. And he's like, oh, I'm doing great, you know, and he's still smoking. He wasn't a drinker, but he did smoke. You know, looking at these food choices here, I was just joking last night with my mom. We would go to a buffet, you know, like if we were staying out of town for a wedding or bar mitzvah or God knows whatever. And my dad would come back from the buffet with pancakes and waffles and Danish. And I'd be like, Dad, you've got diabetes. Oh, I got these for you, Andrea, as if I was going to eat that, right?
Right.
So, you know, you can tell people till you're blue in the face. You know, here are the numbers. If you do X, Y, and Z, I tell people all the time, if you smoke, you are going to get cancer, emphysema, or COPD. Here, well, George Burns lived to be 100. Okay, great. So we got one person, you know, who, you know, but statistically,
there's always the exception to the rule.
Right. You know, you're going to get throat cancer. You're going to, I mean, freaking Van Halen, who just passed away.
Yeah.
Throat cancer. He smoked like 5 packs of cigarettes a day, you know, and you know it's going to happen. It's just, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just think it'll never happen to me. Or I used to think, oh, by the time, whatever, there'll be a cure. Yeah. And then you find yourself in your 50s and you're like, oh, there's no cure yet. I better stop. So
my grandfather had triple or quadruple bypass when I was born. So 1975, and they told him that he would live 10 more years because this is back in the 70s. And if you had triple or quadruple bypass, you're probably not going to live very long. Mm-hmm. He amazingly lived 28 more years, and then lung cancer got him. Mm-hmm. He had the triple bypass because he was a lifetime 2-pack-a-day smoker, and then somehow managed to live 28 more years, and lung cancer got him in his 70s. And I was like, unfortunately, he never quit. He tried a couple times, never did quit. And
neither did my dad.
No.
You know, God rest his soul. But you know, he and even now, and you know, hopefully my mom's still out at the doctor. But you know, she's not really exercising. She doesn't eat right. She's not obese or anything, but she just doesn't eat healthy. She's so stressed out, cannot handle her stress. And I'm like, Mom, you know, stage 4 cancer does not have to be a death sentence, but you have to make better choices. And unfortunately, I think we as human beings, like or don't like, but we learn things the hard way. So, you know, I'm not gonna stay out of the sun. I'll just wait until I get skin cancer and then I'll stay out of the sun. Or I'm not gonna quit smoking. I'll wait till I have cancer and then I'll, you know, and where we could prevent cancer, we can't prevent aging, but we can certainly prevent or minimize that whole slide that you had with all of these different comorbidities. Many of them could be prevented entirely with the proper introduction of eating right and exercise. And we've got these cancers specifically linked to exercise and obviously along with that, a lower percentage of body fat. So I don't need to read them off to you, but you know, there are still studies being conducted on the other cancers, but there is a direct link to exercise and the prevention of these cancers. And there's also a direct link, a lot of studies on breast cancer showing that people who had breast cancer who participated in regular exercise programming increased their survivorship significantly. I don't know if it was 25% or 30%, but you know, if you're facing your own mortality and somebody gives you an extra 10 years because you exercised, you know, 75 minutes a week or 150, sign me up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, when I saw this slide from you, you know, it's sort of like, really colon cancer stuff? I have some hunches on these. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Do the researchers have any idea, like, why would exercise reduce my risk for colon or
Because
stomach
it can
cancer?
minimize the amount of time. So if, just think about this, if somebody's backed up, they're constipated,
Right.
longer that waste is in contact with the mucosal lining of the stomach, it can potentially become carcinogenic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you
That
know,
was my assumption. Basically,
yeah. So
I'm aware that exercise, improves and speeds up gastrointestinal transit time, right?
yeah,
Really exciting,
yeah,
really exciting terms. You go
yeah.
faster and more often if you exercise. So that in and of itself is a protective mechanism for stomach and colon cancer. Is that essentially what they're seeing?
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, we can look at these and go, what is the connection?
Yeah,
Sometimes I have to just tell people I'm not the one conducting the studies. I just follow what they say and know that
sure.
exercise is good and know how to modify it. But also it has to do with obesity
Right.
and everything from lymphatic function to a strong immune system to our fighter cells. I mean, deep down on a cellular level, down to the microbiome, all of these things are affected.
Yeah, it's amazing. Cancer's fascinating. It's amazing to see some of the research now that's coming out showing, muscle mass and muscle health, even at the cellular level, seems to have a protective mechanism for our brain health. It as someone who's been an exercise professional for a long time, it's sort of like, see, we told you so. This PE thing is sort of important.
Right?
Like gym class is important, but it's
Yeah.
like the more you maintain your physical, you move and maintain your muscles, well, that maintains your bones, that maintains your immune system, that maintains your brain matter. It's like these things do go hand in hand. Moving is important, and
But you've
I
got to
use
do the right exercises.
yeah.
Because even like myself, uh, I've always been an over-exerciser and having my thyroid removed, struggling with eating disorders. I was kind of like what they'd call an exercise bulimic, where I'd do 2 hours. And I have a lot of wear and tear on my joints right now. I've got the shoulders all taped up and, and case in point, this isn't about me, but this is about working with these populations and not understanding the protocol, not understanding what exercises are okay, because not every exercise is okay at any given interval. So you need to understand where to start, how to progress safely. And then you've got the acute and the chronic side effects of cancer surgery and treatment that you need to understand inside and out. So we know that, again, study after study shows that exercise is actually linked to reduced treatment symptoms. And when you look at some of these, obviously some are more, exercise related, lean muscle mass, particularly if someone's on hormonal therapy, and whether it be male or female, usually they lose lean muscle mass. They have cancer cachexia, which I always spell out for people. It's CACHEXIA. Cachexia is how it's actually pronounced. And so we know exercise is going to help build lean muscle while decreasing body fat, which reduces all kinds of comorbidities. Depression. You're diagnosed with cancer, you're depressed. So the endorphins from exercise can help improve your overall mood, helps improve sleep. In order to heal, you have to get enough sleep. In order to have a strong immune system, you have to sleep. But just at the top, improve treatment tolerance. If the side effects are intolerable, then people can't undergo the treatment. So then it's ineffective. If the only thing that you can do as, a stage 4 metastatic breast cancer patient is Ibrance, and the side effects are so bad that you can't do Ibrance anymore, then they're going to tell you to plan hospice. So if exercise can help to tolerate whatever treatment you're on, or even tolerate higher doses so you can shorten the amount of time you're on it, it stands to reason that every patient should be told to exercise. And maybe they are. Maybe they don't hear it. Maybe they don't want to hear it. Or maybe they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Or they have a bad experience because they go to somebody who doesn't know cancer and has them do the wrong things and sets them back exponentially.
Yeah. Well, talk about this too, because obviously people struggling with cancer want faster and better recovery.
Absolutely. And just real quickly, I mean, everything from correcting muscle imbalances, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Following a mastectomy, breast removal, we often see protracted shoulders, forward head, limited range of motion. So activities of daily living, just functional activities. I'm getting a little taste of this with whatever's going on in my shoulder. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this, I can't do that. And my mom said, that's how I felt after my mastectomy. Lymphedema, I just did a webinar for IDEA, so you guys can catch the recording on that, which is swelling of the extremity following radiation or lymph node removal, often not talked about, completely preventable, but it's progressive and can be completely debilitating. So just overall return to activities of daily living and function. And so you have to ask yourself, when you are doing exercise programming, what is the purpose? What is the goal? You know, and what do you need the result to be? And are you setting up realistic expectations for your client?
Yeah. One of the things I talk about, especially with cancer survivors, is cancer, the treatments typically are pretty ravaging to our body. It's not like somebody gives you a medicine and you feel better. They give you a medicine and you feel sicker, right? You tend to not feel well at all, lots of side effects. And so what happens is you got cancer, it takes you 6 months, 2 years, sometimes it's a long time to beat it, right? And then they say, oh, you're cancer free, or you're in remission, or whatever term they use. And I say, yeah, but do you feel like you did before you had cancer? No, I feel 5 years older or 10 years weaker or whatever. Like, yeah, you went through a 6 month to 18-month period of accelerated aging.
Absolutely.
Especially if you weren't exercising. If you didn't hear that part, oh, I should exercise. Now you've lost that lean muscle mass. Your body composition's gotten out of whack. You've lost some bone density. You've had these medications that have been messing up your system. And all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, I'm 64 and I'm a cancer survivor. This is the best it's going to be. And I'm like, no, we've got to get you back. And so you're on this trajectory of aging, and all of a sudden you get cancer, and it's like you dropped off a whole level and you've gone from 62 to 72. Well, let's get you back to feeling 52 again. And you've got to be aggressive with that. I think that's where people think, oh, I made it out the other side, and so now I'm going to take it easy. And no, you can't take it easy. You're going to have to get serious about getting back to where you were 5, even 10 years ago. And that's where I think training is so important.
Well, and I have to tell you, you know, having a mom who's a senior and who's also got cancer, there's a lot of, and I don't know what you want to call it, discrimination, preconceived notions, bias, whatever, where, I mean, she really feels like she's just being set out to pasture. Like, you know what, you're 82 years old, you've got stage 4 cancer, here's a pat on the butt. And
oh, sure. Yeah. Ageism at its finest.
She's like, I think the doctors have just given up on me. They're like, you know, if this works, great. If not, and so, you know, there's a number of dilemmas. One, the doctors don't have the time or the inclination, the expertise to do it themselves. They don't have the fitness professionals that they can refer to, that they feel confident putting their patients in their hands, because as a whole, our industry is looked down upon as far as intellect and ability. And that's why we do have to raise the bar. And, you know, things like the functional aging specialist, the cancer exercise specialist, these came from a need. You know, Dan and Cody and myself, we saw a need, and we created the programming to help educate people so that we could gain the respect of the medical community. You know,
how old's your mom?
82. Just turned 82. And you would never know it. She does not look it. But she's frail. She's frail, but she doesn't age. I mean, she looks really good.
But it's a fundamental problem, because we don't believe that an 82-year-old should expect that much. In fact, what we believe is, well, if you can beat the cancer, we don't know if you can because you're 82, you might live 2 or 3 years, as opposed to, no, I'm 82 and I expect to have 10 to 15 more great years. I'm not going anywhere, and I've got things to do and people to see and stuff to contribute. But unfortunately, I think we've just sort of accepted the notion that, well, what can we possibly expect an 82-year-old to do if they have cancer? Well, if they were 62, we would expect them to figure out how to beat it. And so to me, that's unfortunately an ageist mentality, and your mom has to overcome that, and you have to help her overcome that, and we have to deal with the physicians and be like, no, we want to beat this thing. We want to do whatever it takes to beat it.
I do think that as an oncologist, he happens to be my oncologist from 38 years ago or whatever it was. And I think there is a part of them that is, you know, because they do see people die, and I think they have to detach their emotions. And, you know, this is a very poignant slide because, you know, we're talking about aging, we're talking about cancer, but these habits are set up very early. When we look at 1 in 3 children being physically active, and now, in fact, this is from this. And I'm a grown-up. So what happens to our kids when they're our age and they've been doing this? I mean, both of my thumbs are whacked out. You know, and I'm talking about degenerative joints, arthritis, tendonitis, but I mean, mentally, physically, we are not stimulating our bodies or our minds the way they need to be used. And, you know, 35.
So you can't log into your own Zoom account, but you got the thumb thing on the smartphone figured out, huh?
I didn't understand it was a webinar and not a meeting. Okay, so I'm not techie, but yes, my thumbs are awesome. You remember when we had yellow pages and it said, let your fingers do the walking?
Yes, I remember. Yep.
I was really good at that. So, you know, basically, I mean, what this slide is saying that nobody's getting the right amount of exercise. I mean, generally speaking, wherever you are in the world, and whether you're a 3-year-old or an 83-year-old, you were just not putting enough emphasis on the need for exercise and the benefits. And I do remember when I was in elementary school, junior high, whatever, we had an hour of PE or a half hour, whatever it was.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and now what's the first thing they cut? Art and exercise.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, Illinois, I don't know if Illinois still does this. I grew up in Illinois and we had to have PE for an hour every day, all through high school. There's no exception. Every day, 5 days a week. It got as much as math, any other subject. I now live in Indiana, and you know, it's like, wait, you only have PE twice a week? What's going on? Oh, well, it's a special, right? And a special is art, music, and PE. I'm like, why is PE a special? Why is it not as important as math and science and all these others? Of course, in Indiana, it's not. And I don't know, and a lot of other states are that way. I think Illinois still is 5 days a week through 12th grade, K through 12. They haven't cut it yet. Now, I don't.
Yeah. Do you remember the President's Physical Fitness Award?
Oh, yeah, I remember. Oh, yeah.
A little what do you call it? Like iron-on thingamajiggy, and you're like, I got 10 President Physical.
You had to do the shuttle run, the sit-up test, push-up test. I don't know.
I mean, elementary school, I remember field day and recess. And I mean, this is back in the 70s, you know, and it was a big deal back then. And then slowly over time, as we become more, you know, techie, suddenly we don't need our bodies anymore.
Yeah. And it's sad that physical education has not always been seen as an educational component. I think far too often schools are like, well, they get recess so they can run around and play then. It's like, but no, the physical education part, and of course part of that I'm sure was unfortunate in that we were sticking sport coaches into PE classes and not doing the education. You know, dodgeball, as much fun as I had playing dodgeball, is it really physical education? Is it really physical education? It's
you get sex ed, and you get
legalized bullying, but not quite exactly PE.
We'll teach you how to prevent pregnancies and venereal diseases, but we won't teach you how to take care of your body so you live a long, healthy lifetime.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got to wrap up here. You know, exercise is medicine obviously applies beyond cancer to so many things. I've got, I think, 1 or 2 more slides here. I'll let you hit quickly, and then I want to take questions because we're going to have to wrap up soon.
Basically, Dan, you know, this is just showing all the mechanisms as answering the question of, why is cancer or why is esophageal cancer linked with exercise? And these are just a number of the different reasons. So, I think case in point, we know it works. We don't need to necessarily break this all down. But obesity is a huge one. And again, doctors do not know what to do, or they don't have the time to do it. So not only are they looking for a referral source, this is also an opportunity that you may be able to position yourself within a doctor's practice. Possibilities for medical billing. I'm saying possibilities. I am not making you that promise, because it has to go through the doctor and whatever. But even if you're doing your own billing and you're paying rent to the doctor, it's that one-stop shop for the patient, and there's just a huge opportunity here.
Yeah, absolutely. So
the answer to this real quick, and maybe you just stop doing the slides, is because people don't understand all of the intricacies. The doctors don't understand it. The patients don't understand it. There's a lack of education. And so what happens, and I use my little hands, here's the hospital, here's the fitness center, cancer patients standing on the edge of the bridge, and they fall in because there is no bridge. So we're trying to create and become that next step in the healthcare continuum.
Yeah, last slide for you, and then I've got 2 closing slides. If you
Let's
have questions,
go to the bottom.
If you have questions, go ahead and start typing those in.
Yeah, just the bottom line, Dan, is every cancer patient, much like every human being, has a unique experience. There is no one size fits all. You can't possibly throw a bunch of cancer patients at all different stages with all different ages and surgeries and treatments and put them in a class and call it good. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to close with, because the functional aging training model is very much the same way. We know we have an epidemic of sedentary living. We know we have an epidemic of people not being physically active, higher rates of all sorts of disease issues, but it isn't a one size fits all. And so we look at it, and what we're going to look at next week, we're going to start to break down some of these things. Andrea's going to take a little bit more time on the cancer. I'm going to take a little bit more time on the functional aging.
Yeah, and this is free, you guys. So
totally free.
We're sending out the links. It's 5 days of education for free with Dan and I.
I thought I had maybe I don't have it here. So this is where I'm going to end.
Here, I'm going to pull this.
I have a slide, and I'll show it to you all next week if you haven't seen it. 6 different domains of human function, because there is no one size fits all. It's not, this is the training program for a 70-year-old, because every 70-year-old has different need to do, like to do, and want to do, right? Joanne wanted to go to the Galapagos Islands. Andrea, she doesn't want to go to the Galapagos Islands. She wants to snowboard or do something with snow, right? She wants to do snow sports, and that's great. So her fitness program is going to look a little bit different than Joanne, who wants to go to the Galapagos Islands. So we have to think about that. And so next week we're offering 5 free sessions. If you're not in the Facebook group, you need to get in the Facebook group. Andrea is showing the Facebook group.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
here's what it looks like, and you can just ask to be admitted, guys. CES/FAS Kickstart. And then once you're in there, then we'll send you all the links to the webinars, or the link to all of them. Great opportunity for everybody. So I hope you'll join us. We need to get more people educated. Now, mind you, just so there's no false advertising, you will not walk away with this with the functional aging or cancer exercise specialist certs or train. This is just a general overview, and that may help you decide, I want to do more, or I don't want to do this at all. Sign me up. And then we go into what, a 6-week or 3-week fast track training where you get both certifications. But next week is just some general advice overview, not the actual certifications.
Yeah, I just put the link in the chat, so everybody's got it, where you can register for each and every webinar next week. You can also join the Facebook group. So Monday, I'll be speaking on, I don't even remember the topic. Let me pull up the calendar. Here it is.
And I'm glad it's you, because I just got panicked. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on a plane on Monday.
Yeah, here, I'll share the screen so people can see the whole calendar. Let's see, make sure I share the right screen here. Okay, can you see it? So on Monday, I'm doing the biggest opportunity in fitness history. I'm going to be looking at a lot of different numbers, demographics, marketing strategies, and why we've been missing this market. Tuesday, Andrea is doing exercise and its effects on cancer treatment and recovery. On Wednesday, I'll be back doing how to be ready for the next 5 big things in fitness. So Cody and I have actually looked at trends. We've looked at some club industry reports, and we've sort of seen, hey, what is coming? And then a couple of these things we've actually seen happen this year because of COVID really quickly.
And actually, Dan, if they look at the club industry magazine, it just went out like 2 weeks ago. There was an interview I did, which was talking about all of the opportunities right now for the fitness industry. And of course it was about cancer, but I mean, really this whole, both of what, functional aging and cancer goes hand in hand.
And then Andrea will be back again on Thursday. Every one of these is 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So they're all the same time. You can register. We'll get you the replay. I know some people are like, well, I can't do that's fine. You don't have to do every day. Pick the ones that make the most sense for you. And then Friday, we'll both be back talking again about active aging and cancer trends and predictions and taking more Q&A. So we'll have more time for that. These are all totally free. We'd love for you to join us. There's really no reason why you shouldn't register for all of them, honestly. What questions do people have? Feel free to type those in. We'll take questions. Yeah, Andre's saying these events are all in the FEI email newsletter. Yep, if you're on the FEI list, you've got them all sent to you. Ariana, thanks to both of you. Can't get enough of your education and advice. Look forward to next week. Hopefully you say the same thing after 5 days.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong queue. I'm looking at the answer.
I'm looking at the chat. So you can man the Q&A. How's that? Anonymous attendee, do you issue e-certificate to those who attended today? I don't think we're doing that, are we, Andrea?
I mean, it's not really a certificate, I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah, I mean, we always give an hour of CEUs for anyone who attends a webinar, but we don't issue certificates. So for us, all you have to do is reach out to us, contact@functionalaginginstitute.com. Celia could create an FAI 1-hour CEU for attending this webinar. Totally could do that if that's something you need. Brian, I love your comment. Bottom line, exercise improves all circulation. We are flowing beings and need to move. Activity levels have declined exponentially, thus more stagnation and more illness. Yeah, absolutely. We need to move more. I've heard people actually joke and say, can you imagine what people 100 years ago must think about us having all these fitness centers and gyms and places to go move? They're probably like, do you not have enough movement you need to do? I mean, I'm sure they walked miles and they, of course, were much more.
Still not even using them. I mean,
yeah, much more agricultural society. The times have changed. They absolutely have changed. In fact, we sadly in the United States, we've built our communities so you can barely walk, right? You have to drive from place to place, and then you drive to get your food, and they hand it to you through a window. I mean, it's really quite sad.
Exercise only on the days you eat. Good. I like that, Marty.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get that on a bumper sticker. All right. Well, if anybody wants to email us, we will both respond to you. And then I know I gotta jump on another webinar for Australia now. And really glad that you were able to join us. And thank you, Dan, for being here. And
yep, I will. I'll see you all Monday. And if you've got questions, you can comment in the Facebook group. Feel free to email us, and we'll see you next week for a full week. So thanks, everyone.
Great. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye.